All right, everybody. Hello, hello. Welcome to the session. We're going to give everybody about 5 minutes, so 4 more minutes for those that are still getting off of work and still making their way into the session. While we'll do, maybe we can just do a quick little, around the table conversation, some introductions. Ben, are you there with us? Okay, now I see Keith got his camera on, so we'll start with him. How's it going, Keith? I think you're still muted.
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing all right, man. I'm doing all right. So what brings you to this session? I'm guessing you're in the California bar and we didn't get the results we wanted for February.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I This is my second time taking it. I made a significant improvement, but there's still some things that I definitely need to work on. So I'm trying to see if, what get all the help I can get to finally get that passing score.
There we go. Love the mentality, man. Love. It seems like we're going to talk today a little bit about processing those emotions and getting back in the saddle. Good to hear you, in some uplifted spirits and ready to tackle that. Let me ask you just personally, have you kind of identified what might be, those areas that you want to improve in?
Definitely the essays. The MBEs. I think I did. I definitely could improve on that, but I think the easiest for me to way to improve is definitely on the essays.
Awesome. Okay.
But yeah.
Okay, man. Well, do we still have a big jump to make or we have a smaller jump? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big jump, but it's definitely much better than my first time. So
Then the first time,
yeah.
yeah. And I'll share a quick story with you guys, and it'll come up in the presentation, but I had a student who met with me back in February and he came in and he was around 200 points away from passing and he was like, DeAndre, like, all right, just keep it real with me, man. Like, can I make this jump? Can I do this? And I told him, I said, look, this is the bar exam, right? Like anything is possible. And yes, right, you can make that jump. Now, it's going to take what it's going to take in order to do that, right? And so that's the part that we're going to have to accept. But there's no number that I believe that a student can't make that improvement to go on and pass. So it's a matter of really just getting in there, figuring it out. So yeah, I'm excited to talk a little bit today, Keith, and give you some insight. One, just in general, how you can do that. And then two, how possibly you can continue that with Legally Fit. We can give you a little bit more.
Sound good. I'm looking forward to it.
Perfect, perfect. All right. And then Lisa, how are we doing today?
Hello, I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing all right. So, it's now Monday. How are we doing on the emotion side, Lisa?
I'm doing better. So I'm a
Hmm.
little bit in a different boat. So I actually graduate in 3 weeks. I took the bar early, in New York, and I didn't get the score that I wanted. So this would technically be my second time, but my first time after graduation taking the bar. So it's still kind of a
Mm.
lot of emotions happening right now. So, just dealing with all of that.
Absolutely, absolutely. So you're taking New York again?
Yes.
Got it. Okay. So yeah, and it's like it's one of those things where and I didn't look up the recent New York pass rate. So what was the pass rate for this go around?
266.
266. No, the percentage of passers. So is it like
Oh, I
50%?
I think it was seven. Honestly, I can't remember. It was very low. It was very low.
Yeah. And that's
February
typically
New
what
York
it's
is very
been.
low.
California and New York are, two of the hardest exams to pass. And so Lisa, with that said, like the reality is that I don't think the stigma has yet, changed yet, is that the reality is like more people take this test more times than once in most situations. But we all right have this pressure and this passion and this desire to get straight to practice as quick as possible and this expectation that we will pass. So yeah, one of the big things too is realizing that, like, one, you're not alone, and if anything, you're with the majority. And again, sometimes it still is not the best feeling because we have these high expectations for ourselves. We're lawyers to be. We're typically competitive Type A personalities, so we want to keep that chip on our shoulder, but at the same time, we want to keep it in perspective, hopefully, and still be able to count our blessings. Realize that we're in this boat, and we're gonna find a way out of this. So hopefully today will help with that as well.
Thank you.
Yes. All right. So it's 6:06 now. So let's go ahead and officially get started. I want to welcome everybody to this session. Didn't pass now what? I have a presentation. We're going to go through the entire thing. And then with the time that we have remaining, I want to open it up to questions for you all that you guys may have, that you can get as much value out of our session here today as possible. Again, with the goal of getting you back on track to studying. So here we are. Let me make this thing right here shorter. Perfect. All right. So there we go. First image of the presentation. We see we got the elephant in the room. And what exactly is that? It's that this sucks, So the way I want to start this is just a moment of a little bit of that venting, right? Like in this process, let's get out as much as possible of the anger, the frustration, right? And let's talk about it for a second. These are just a few reasons why this bar exam sucks. The idea of memorizing 13 subjects. When I practice, I'm only going to be in one area of practice. This is ridiculous. The randomization of which subjects are essay tested. Not only is there 13 subjects, there's only going to be a handful of those that are tested on the essay. And you're making me guess as to that. Not only do I have to guess as to the subjects, then there's all the various topics within those subjects, right, that are randomized on what can be tested. There's the randomization of the PT chosen, right? Had it been a persuasive memo, I would have crushed it. Had it been an objective memo, had it been a closing argument, it could have been a different outcome. How about the infinite universe of nuance that can be tested on the MBE, right? We all got to the bar exam and it was like, I've never seen this area of law before. I've never seen this phrased in this way, right? And then lastly, right, which is probably for me, the most annoying part of this whole bar exam is the subjectiveness and how the written portion is graded. It's ridiculous. Every single year I see it in scorecards that are sent to me, right, with scores that go into the reread category, right? Meaning the person was close enough to passing, right? Now they have a second grader read the same essays and give another score. And I've seen up to 15-point differences on just one essay. So how can two people trained by the same bar exam grading the same essay have something that varies so widely? Right? There's subjectiveness in this grading. So there's a few reasons why this sucks. What's the solution? And this is the reality, everybody. We must be so good that these variables don't impact our chances of passing. We must propel ourselves outside of the risk zone. All right. And that's the reality. Like, so when we're looking at, let's say, 10 people who took the bar, out of those 10 people, let's say 5 of them passed, you probably had 2, right, that barely got over, right? And then let's say you had 3 that just crushed it. Didn't matter if they took this exam, next July, next February, they're going to crush it every time because they're outside of that risk zone. 2 of them happened to just get over, right? Whereas 5, right, didn't happen to get over. And so what I want you all to do is focus on, I want to be, right, so prepared. I wanted to be doing so well that I'm outside of that risk zone. And that's the best position to be in so that you don't find yourself on the wrong side of these variables. Now, let's talk about how you get outside of that risk zone. Okay. So number 1, you have no gaps in your understanding of the heavily tested topics. So at the end of the day, it starts with, you have to have that strong understanding of the law, right? So again, if it's 2207, Battle of the Forms, we know that likes to come up. If it's parole evidence rule, you need to know how to get in and out of that discussion, right? So all those major topics. We see sometimes, right? I don't know if it was some of you guys in here who may get selective with what they focus on. Sometimes I've seen it where people are even selective with subjects as a whole. Oh, they just tested this subject, so I'm not going to focus on this one as much. Guess what? It shows back up, right? I'm not going to focus on this topic as much. So you want to be careful with that. And again, no gaps in your understanding. The next one, you have no glaring weaknesses with any portion of the exam. So at this point, we want to all be aware that the way the exam grading works is that it's all balanced out, right? So you have your essay score or your written score, and then you have your MBE. Now, a slightly higher essay score, right, or a really high essay score can account for a slightly lower MBE score, right? But if your floor is not high enough and you really have a big weakness in one area, it doesn't matter how well you do in the other area, it's not reasonably going to pick up that other score. Okay. So you can have a weakness, but when it's a glaring weakness, right? When you're significantly underperforming in one category, you have to stop that bleeding. You have to get that up to a certain floor. All right. And then the last one, which I think is a very important perspective that a lot of students don't have, is to identify your strengths and leverage them to give yourself some cushion. Right. So I'm going to give you a quick example of that. When I was in the bar, taking the bar, I was in a position where the essays were my strength, right? And going into the bar exam, multiple choice I was good at, but I didn't love the idea of doing 100 questions in these 3-hour right segments. That time pressure definitely caused my performance to go a little bit lower than what it did in law school. So understanding that this was going to be the nature and I wasn't going to completely fix this in this time frame, I realized that with my essays, I don't need just barely passing essays. Like I want my essays to be through the roof. So on then the day of the exam, I'm not going through that in a way where it's like, all right, I'm just going for right the 60 or the 65 if it's California, right? Or the 3 or 4 if it's the UBE. Like I'm going all the way for a top score, right? Because that is me leaning into my strengths. So as you all prepare for this next go round, right? And let's take Keith, for example. He was just mentioning that he really wants to improve on his essay. Well, if MBEs are really his strength, in that situation, let's not only work on our weakness, but continue to have that mindset of improving our strengths. Awesome. Okay. So how do you get there, right? So we talked about the risk zone. We talked about how, like, what you want to do. Now, how do you get there? Step number 1 is process your emotions and welcome the challenge. And this is a very important step, right? We see that very kumbaya therapeutic, right? Clip art or picture that we have here. And this might not be your exact process of doing it, but whatever it looks like, I need you to do that because otherwise you're going to be distracted during your next time studying. You're going to be angry, you're going to be upset, etc. Next, you want to reflect. We'll talk about that one. And then after you do those two, it's time to go ahead and get back in the ring and begin. So again, back to processing your emotions. Everyone must go through their own way of processing their emotions. Party, cry, laugh, reflect, destroy, right? I don't know if you guys have been to those rage rooms, right? Where you just take a bat to all these different items just to let out all the rage, right? Ignore. Some of us are avoidant, right? Like, I'm just going to like act like that didn't happen and just move on, right? I'm not even going to process it, right? Sometimes that is an effective method for some of us. So whatever it may be that is effective for you, and it has to be effective, right? Like if you're not effective at ignoring it, don't, because if you try to and it's still sitting there on you during studying, then that's not the effective method. So again, if you don't process these emotions, they will end up being detrimental. They will hurt you and hold you back from reaching your potential. And then lastly, own your story. So I've been doing this now for over 10 years. Quick background on me. I went to Howard University in DC. I graduated there in 2011. I went to Southwestern Law School in Los Angeles. I graduated top of my class and immediately started Legally Fit, which was aimed at helping students through law school and bar prep and making a program that was not only more effective than what was out there, also more enjoyable. And so, yeah, in the history of the 10 years, right, I've gotten to know a lot of repeat takers. And the story is always the same kind of coming into it, or very, common of just kind of being down on themselves, being a little defeated, right, et cetera. And what I've seen consistently as well is that when you are on the other side, you actually then right, are no longer holding on to those times that you didn't pass, right? All it is that I passed. And what I think is so amazing and strong about a repeat taker is the additional character that it builds by your perseverance to continue this, right? To not give up, to continue to fight, to be humbled and respond and still be successful. And in giving you some confidence and some comfort, here's the list of people who took the bar more than one time, right, before they passed. Michelle Obama, who we all know. Kamala Harris, who we all know. Judge Eric Taylor, he was the presiding judge of Los Angeles Superior Court, took the bar more than once, right? And you could see the list here. Even Kim Kardashian, right, had to take the baby bar more than once. So own your story. It's not indicative of how great of an attorney you will be. It's not indicative of how smart you are. This is a very tough exam. To be honest, it's a very outdated exam in the way that it's administered and how it's testing, which we know that we have all these changes that we're about to see with it soon. But for now, we have the same exam. There is a recipe for passing it, and we just have to figure it out. Okay, so next you want to reflect on your areas of improvement. Now, this is where I need everybody to look in the mirror and be honest. Here are some questions to ask yourself. Did I have too many distractions during bar prep? Did I have the proper study environment? All right, so let's go one by one and actually give some examples. Too many distractions during bar prep. Was I consumed with what sports were relevant? You know, I'm following the NBA playoffs during, bar prep, or I'm in a relationship and I'm still heavily dating and doing things like that, right? Like, we know with bar prep, you want to simplify your life as much as possible so you can be all the way locked in. Next, did I have the proper study environment? Was I studying at home? If so, sometimes is that the most effective place? Am I getting up too much to go to the bathroom, to the refrigerator, right? Am I actually learning and maximizing my time here? Do I need to go to a library? Do I need to go to a different place? Did I skip certain subjects and topics hoping they wouldn't be tested? That's just a no-no, right? You're just rolling the dice and gambling when you do that. And now these are my favorite questions. Did you get enough exposure, right? At the end of the day, this is an exam in which we have a fair amount of practice to use to prepare for it. But there are shockingly times when we fall way lower than these numbers that we would consider adequate exposure. So look in the mirror. Did I do 2,200 MBE questions or more? Did I write or review 100 essays? And did I write or review 8 to 10 PTs? Okay. So for some of us, that number might be shocking, like, what? I'm supposed to do that many? The answer is yes. That is the idea, is that you want to live in these practice exams, because that is what you'll be seeing on the day of the exam is modeled after. Okay. If anybody has anything too that they want to put as far as questions as we go through the chat, I may answer a few in the chat before we get to the open Q&A at the end. And then even if it's in there, you can make sure you write down the question so I don't forget if I don't answer it now. All right, so after you process your emotions and then you reflect and you look in the mirror to figure out what you need to do, next you begin your journey to passing this exam, okay? So I want you to remember, you are entering this next round with confidence. You're entering this journey with more knowledge, insight, skills than you did last time. So whether this is your second time, your third time, fourth time, fifth time, every time you're entering with something additional. And I want you to really remember that and use that, okay? With that said, the journey begins with a solid attack plan. And that is what today in this group setting, I'm aiming to do for you all, is to help you start those steps of creating that attack plan. So first, you want to assess your time commitment for bar prep, which is May through July. Then you want to consider an early start, which is now until the 19th. And then you want to select your bar prep provider and then customize your attack plan. As a repeat taker, you don't need to do anything cookie cutter, right? And some programs like mine aren't designed to be cookie cutter to begin with. But if you are going with one of the more big box companies that don't really have customization within it, you need to be thinking, how am I going to tailor this to myself in a way that you're being careful and not overcorrecting, right? That then creates other issues. So attack plan recommendations, okay? So I am aware, just out of curiosity, and let me pull back up all of the screens that I could see. Raise your hand, your digital hand, if you have taken the UBE exam and are taking the UBE exam. Okay, so we have Lisa. Okay, so I'm assuming then everybody else is taking the California. So with that said, Lisa, I want you to simply, look at this. We can talk afterwards for a few minutes because I am familiar a little bit. I just have to refresh myself with the UBE scoring, but it would be the same concept, but we would just have to change, right, that points away section. It's different scoring for the UBE. All right. So with that said, for all my California students, if you were 0 to 25 points away, that is what I consider striking distance, right? Like you are right there. A few different things could go differently. And if in your favor, you could have passed this exam. As you see here, no matter what you do, I always recommend a bar prep program that you take. Just because I don't like gambling with this exam, right? We all know if we're here that this cycle of when the next time you can actually be licensed after not passing is a year, right? Between waiting to take the exam again, waiting for the results again, right? And all of that, that's how long it could take. So bar prep programs are safe in that they keep you on a schedule and it gives you a structure to follow. Now, it doesn't mean you have to do, let's say with ours, like a live program or you have to follow it completely, et cetera. But at least having that structure and that guidance, I think is beneficial. So then after that, you're looking into, as far as part of your attack plan, should I consider private coaching, working with somebody that can really give me some one-on-one feedback and accountability and some direction on how to move the needle? So I say when you are a repeat taker, I think private coaching should be 100% implemented into your attack plan. The question is just how much, right? So if you were 0 to 25 points away, just get a session to 3 sessions, right? Anywhere from that range throughout the entire 10 weeks, just to, right, make sure you're on the right track. So maybe one session at the beginning is a diagnostic, right, consultation like session where you're figuring out where your weaknesses are, where you can improve. And then you have one in the middle of bar prep and then one towards the end. Okay. Early start, right, is pretty explanatory here. Most programs have an official 10-week program that starts around that May 19th area. So you have about 2 weeks or so that you can get started early if you want. For a person that was in that striking distance range, this is optional. And then lastly, self-study. Self-study is when you're not using any structure from a bar prep program or the resources, and you're just like, look, I'm going to just take everything and sit down by myself and do this and knock this out. I have seen it work. I think that should be left for the people who are really self-motivated and very disciplined, right? And all those things. And I do think it's an option if you're in striking distance. All right. And then let's just kind of go through quickly the other ones. If you're in that 26 to 100 range, right, you're not striking distance, but I would say you're not also completely far off, or that, that last range is 101 plus points, where that's a significant jump. So you still need to make a decent jump, not a significant one. There, I would recommend a program, coaching once a week. I would recommend starting early because why not? And then I don't think self-study is the approach to go if you need to make that decent jump. Now, if you need to make a significant jump, consider coaching twice a week. Once a week may still be sufficient, but you can consider twice a week coaching at that point. Early start is recommended, and definitely would not recommend self-studying. Okay. All right. So let's go to talking about time commitment. So a lot of us, right, after we take this bar exam once, some of us might be our third time taking it twice. So we're in a position where we might not be able to dedicate all of our time to bar prep studying anymore. So I'm going to address this really quickly in this group setting. So number one, remember that the goal is always full-time study. I don't care, even if you were just in that striking distance range, you only need a few more points to pass. The reality is that you're, again, still in that risk zone. And I want you to dedicate full-time study to get out of that risk zone. So that way you don't find yourself in striking distance and then you kind of go, right, part-time, you put in that, a decent amount of work, but not as much as you can. And then you end up in that same exact position. And I've seen that before. So we want to be done with this exam. The goal, if you can pull it off, is full-time study. So I've broken this down because these are typically the reasons why we don't have all of our time to study. Typically, it's that we either have a job or we have other personal commitments. So here's not where I'm going to necessarily give you advice, right? But I broke down basically what are the three options in each of those scenarios. So if you have a job, right, number one option, or not number one, but the first option we'll discuss is to clear your schedule. Quit your job, take 3 months off of your job. All right. Now, that is, again, something for you to decide if you have the financial capabilities of doing so. If this is a job that you, in fact, plan to retain and you must stay in order to keep that, right? Like, there's all the personal considerations. But there are times when I know people who are in jobs they know they're not going to keep, and they do have the financial means. They just might not want to sacrifice for that time period. And in those situations, I think it's definitely worth it to consider stop working. Next, if you can't clear your schedule, consider creating more time, taking 1 or 2 months off, switching to a part-time role or a hybrid of both. And then the last option is like, look, D, I cannot change my work schedule at all. I have to work full-time. So you continue to work full-time and study after work and weekends. Now, again, I've seen students, plenty of them, pass in this situation. I've also seen probably more students not pass in this situation, right? You determine where you're at and what's best for you in the totality. Those with personal commitments, clear your schedule. I put break up, right? That is a joke. Don't necessarily go that route if that's not the situation. But, right, if you have situations, right, where you're dating and you're, exploring, like, this is a good time to put your dating life on pause, right? To focus and accomplish this goal. Okay. Do not break up with your fiance. Do not break up with your married partner. But definitely communicate with them that we need all hands on deck to get over this hurdle, to get over this exam. Create more time. Consider babysitters, family members you can lean on, adjust your relationships, right? Sacrifice that social schedule, do all those things, right? So that way you can, again, be done with this. And then lastly is you're in a situation where you have to just study with leftover time. We've had the students where I have 2 kids, right? Like, I have to be a mother or a father to these kids. So I only have this amount of time, right? Or I have to work, or I have these other family obligations. Again, if that's the case, know what much time you have and then make it work. Okay. So the one thing that I think, if you're in this boat where you do have time commitments, and I see rarely that students do this, like, you still need to have a structured schedule. So at the bottom here, until you see, you need to know exactly how many hours you will be able to dedicate per day and per week. Doing the whole, like, go with the flow type of study approach is just not ideal. Oh, I might do 2 hours today. Oh, I might do 4. No, like, you need to have a schedule. And that way, whether you're working with us or you're working by yourself or with somebody else, you know exactly then where to spend that time, right? And that way you're not just kind of walking through this aimlessly. All right, so we're moving on from time commitments and we're getting into why do we start early? All right. One, as a remedy, because you are using this to account for some of the part-time bar prep studying that you'll be doing. Or you're just like, hey, I want some extra attention. Like, why not? I just want to go ahead and get into this early. So those are the 2 reasons why somebody starts early. Who is it for? For those that are just like ready to go, antsy to get back into studying. For those that do have those work or personal commitments, or those that just simply want to warm up before they get back into that intense studying, right? We know how intensive bar prep can be, and you can use this time as, like, again, that slow ramp up. Do I have to start early? We just talked about this in a couple slides back. No, in no situation is it mandatory that you do so. But it is recommended, and I would say all of them. The only time it was optional, really, right, was if you were in that striking distance range. But I think in all situations, if you have the ability to do so, you should definitely consider starting early, because, again, why not? And we want to pass this exam. The last thing we're going to talk about here is, how do you start early? There's 3 different mentalities to have when using now this 2 weeks to start early. Number 1 is the remedy approach. Take a look at your Legally Fit or other bar prep provider's schedule and simply work ahead of schedule. This remedy approach is for those that have work or personal commitments that they know they can't give full time once the program starts. So you're giving yourself this lead or this cushion, right, for the actual program. That's the remedy approach. We can also call that the Head Start approach. Next is the extra attention practice approach. So this is a situation where you do have full time, you'll be fine, right? But now you're focusing these 2 weeks on what you believe to be your particular weaknesses are, just to get that extra attention there. So again, I'm going to use Keith, who I appreciate was vulnerable with us all and letting us know where his weakness is and what he wants to work on. And he was saying, you know what, I want to work on my essays. So in his approach, this would be a great time, if he was going this route, to focus on doing some essays in these 2 weeks. Okay. And then lastly, prepare your life. Prepare your life is an early start approach where you're not even actually dealing too much with the law, but all those other things that we talked about that impact it, you are getting that ready, right? You're getting your relationships ready. You're getting your schedule ready, your babysitter ready, right? Whatever those things may be. I think setting yourself up for success is extremely underrated and very important to your success, right? When I was in bar prep, I would say that one of the keys to my success is that I had a friend of mine who was just starting culinary school randomly, and they were meal prepping for me during bar prep. Just not having to think about food every day was such a game changer that I could just, boom, pop this nice healthy meal into the microwave and maximize my break time and then get back to studying. And I had food that was fueling me, not keeping me tired and giving me the itis, right? Things like that. Get that self-care regimen, all those things. Okay. Let's see if there's any quick, easy questions I can answer now before we go to the end. Okay. All right. So, next we're in select your bar prep provider. So same company versus new company versus the legally fit difference. And then we have the program options that we're offering this year. So when you're in the position of figuring out, what do I do? Do I go with the same company I used last time, or do I do a different one? The reality is if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And if it is broke, fix it. You again want to look in the mirror, be reflective and say like, hey, like, is this program that I used good? Do I feel like they're giving me the tools to succeed? If so, then continue. But if you feel like, hey, I'm not really connecting with the material, I'm not really connecting with the lectures and the lessons to where I can understand the law as well as I want to, those are all different reasons why you should then be considering a different company, which can be scary, but it can also be refreshing, right? If you're in that position where then now you have this new program that's giving you these new and then hopefully effective materials that kind of rejuvenates you through going through this process again. So here's a quick overview of what the legally fit difference is and what our program is and how it differs from other programs. So this is a timeline between essentially now and you taking this exam and passing it in July. It starts with consultations. We'll talk about that here again in a second. But next week, we are then starting orientation, right? One of the 4 key steps of this process. In orientation, what we have done is extracted some of the things that you otherwise learn in the middle of studying. And we've given to you this in this concentrated way before the program starts so you can get acclimated early. Schedule and study expectations, the introduction to the strategy that we use. And let me tell you, it's a lot of it to make the study process simpler and more effective. We teach you how to prepare your life for bar prep, as we mentioned, the importance of that. And then we uncover the challenges of bar prep. All right, then we go into Learn and Adjust, which is the official kickoff of bar prep. And this is, as you can see here, 7 weeks, the longest phase of bar prep. This is where you are learning all of the law and the skills, and you're adjusting as you go, right? When I say adjust as you go, you really want to have the mindset that while you're going through bar prep, you're constantly seeing your areas for improvement and how to improve both with the law and the skills. So we give you a bunch of tools, guidance, and insight to make sure you are continuously doing that during those 7 weeks. Then you have assess and strategize, right? So 1 week after learning all the subjects, we go through a mock exam. You'll be receiving a comprehensive report and feedback. And then from there, we'll be creating this personalized attack plan that then takes us into our last 2 weeks where we pretty much pack everything in, right? Get that confidence as high as we can, and we go into the exam and take it with confidence, okay? So that is the entire Legally Fit overview of how we go through the program. Here's some of the details on the 2 programs that we offer and some pricing. All right. So for the person that wants all of the materials and they want to study on their own, we have what we call the elevated self-study, the Legally Fit Bar Prep, where you'll get all of our materials for mastering the law. You'll get essay grading. You'll be able to come to the mock exam, and then you get our structured schedule to guide you through the program. And then you also have office hours, which is a great feature to have to be able to come in, ask questions, and make sure you're keeping up with everything as you go through. That program is $2,200. Then we have the Legally Fit Bar Prep Plus program, right, which is our premium bar prep experience, where now you are in workshops weekly, right? So we typically have anywhere from 2 to 4 workshops per week during bar prep, and those include MBE workshops and essay workshops primarily. We also do some additional things for our students in this program around support and accountability. Right. On Fridays, we'll have sessions that are essentially powwows and vent sessions to make sure we're all mentally staying strong and together through this challenging exam. So those are good opportunities just to meet other people, hear other struggles, and then get solutions on how to continue to stay strong through this process. And then we have additional extras and surprises that we give in this program. And the way I can best summarize this program is that this is kind of the magic of Legally Fit, is in that live experience. The self-study, don't get me wrong, is amazing. But this is where we get to have that intimate experience with the students, guide them through it, and just try to have the most impact that we can by having those workshops where we're instilling the strategy, right, and the tools that you're going to need to succeed. That program is $39.50. All right. Lastly, on this whole attack plan, what you need to do is customize that attack plan really quickly here. You read and dissect your scores, and then you adjust your schedule, but you don't overcorrect. The last thing you want to do is fix one problem and create another. So make sure you do that appropriately. Okay. And then if you want some assistance with this, we piloted this last year and it was with great success. A lot of students who did these one-on-one consultations, whether they took Legally Fit or not, did go on to pass. It was a great way to kick off their bar prep with some clarity as to what they need to focus on and how to adjust their schedule. So take advantage of this if you're interested. The QR code is right there to book a session. You'll be having the one-on-one with me. It'll be an hour for us to go through your scorecard interpretation, essay writing feedback, and then let's talk about your schedule. Let's talk about what program you want to take, et cetera, and how we can tailor that to your life and your circumstances. Okay, so there's that QR code for anybody that wants to do it. Those consultations are $99. Okay, and they're anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour, depending on how the session is going. Okay, so here are a few key stats before we wrap up. Key stat number 1, our recent pass rate for February 24 was 76%. The California pass rate was 34%. All right, so we still have not got that elusive 100%. That's, again, my mindset, same mindset I instill in you guys. Always shoot for the moon and land on the stars. It's going to be very hard as we continue to grow our class sizes to get that 100% when the pass rate is so low for the state, but that's what we're shooting for. But we're still very proud of this number, and definitely something for you guys to see that you're in good hands and you'll have a program that definitely can get you over this hurdle. Key stat number 2, in our February bar prep class, one of our students improved 188 points. All right, so what is 1390 minus 188 to see what that starting score was? 1390 minus 188. So that means they had a 1202 when they came to us. And as I was telling you, Keith, that was the student that came to me who was in this position, right? Let's say 6 months ago, and was saying, hey, I need to make this jump. Do you think I can? And again, my advice to him was definitely you can. Are you ready to put in the work to do it? That student was able to accomplish that goal. So that's awesome. I think that should give hope to everybody in here. No matter what your score is, you can make the jump that you need to be done this next time. And then we have key stat number 3, where we have multiple students. Oh, we have a slight typo there. We have multiple students who worked during bar prep who still passed. Okay, so for all those that are going to have to work, we do have experience with those students. Now, again, it's not my recommendation. I really, really love for my students to try to find as much time to study as possible. But in the event that you can't, you can still find success, and let you know that we have done that. Okay, so that's all the questions, or excuse me, those are all the stats. Here's the quick timeline for the other events that we'll be having this week to continue to give you some free assistance. Tomorrow and Wednesday, we'll be doing a bar breakdown where we'll be going through essays. We'll be going through the contract essay on this February California 24 exam. And then on Wednesday, we'll be going over MBE strategy and a breakdown of how to improve there. For all those that'll be signing up for the program, next Monday will be orientation. And then the following Monday, the 20th, is when bar prep officially begins. All right, so this is now where we're opening it up to some questions. Do we have any? And I can start off by looking in the chat. Okay. Those two, okay. So Martinez, are you still here with me?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, awesome. Are you cool verbalizing that question? Are you cool discussing it out loud?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, perfect. So can you go ahead? I'm trying to read it, but maybe you can better explain it to me by telling me what exactly it was.
A lot of the exams, what I noticed when I was studying is that my mind will trail off, and I don't know if it's maybe just a person, like I don't know how to deal with it basically. Is that the questions will be triggering for me because they will trigger like past personal experiences, and then it gets in the way of everything that I've been taught, because my brain will just divert like so many different ways, and I keep trying to
Yes.
focus. And like on the MBE, it's easier to focus because the questions are shorter, but on the essays, I noticed that it does take, it's this is the second time I the exam. But I was just asking if there's any strategies, because it's hard studying.
Yeah, absolutely.
When I'm studying it kind of.
So I'll come up with a simplified example just to make sure we're on the same page. So this would be, let's say it was a tort question and it was a hypo where somebody was walking and got bit by a dog. And let's say you've been bit by a dog before. So as you're reading that question, you're kind of being triggered in a way that now becomes distracting from you being focused on this tort question. Is that an accurate example?
Yeah, well, it's like some of the, yeah, and it kind of confuses me with what I know to be true and what I've learned in school to be true, and so it just takes my mind a little bit longer to focus on just the question and form an answer. And I know that sounds like, okay, just ignore it, but I keep trying to just ignore it and move on, and it keeps getting in the way.
Yeah. So I have an answer for that, and it's essentially the solution is going to be one that essentially takes time. But the reality is that when you kind of have that situation where you're getting maybe lost in the facts or being triggered by the facts, or you're considering then things that you learned in law school, et cetera, what that sounds like is you are taking in this fact pattern, and then you kind of have this this wealth of information that might even be conflicting that you're then pulling from. And then now it's like it's too messy in your head to be able to get out, as you're saying, formulate this structured answer. So the solution for that is that you want to start learning the law in a structured manner and having a structured strategy for going through the essays. So we'll be talking a lot about this, for example, with essays, at least tomorrow in the breaking down the bar, and we go through the contracts essay. But you'll learn that I treat the exams and the exam as a whole very robotic like. So as I'm reading a fact pattern, I have such a system that it prevents my mind from wandering, right? And then when I'm getting into an area of law or a situation that I'm dealing with, in the way that I have studied and prepared, it is taking me directly to what I need to think of or know that prevents me from going left or going right. So yeah, there's no quick answer to that, but the big picture answer is that in order to be more streamlined, you have to have more structure and more practice with that structure. So that way, when you get on the bar exam and you're reading through that crim pro question, and it's like, officer, pulls over suspect for nothing, right? Then it's like, the structure there is, okay, when have I seen this before in my bar prep studies? What was the result when they pulled over somebody with no reason at all? And what impact did that have? And it's more of a structured train of thought as opposed to, okay, here's all these facts. What am I thinking? And kind of going based more off of intuition. Does that help a little bit?
Yeah, I think that makes sense because I have had a less structured bar prep where I've been on my own just because of personal circumstances. And now
Yes.
I've made the changes that like everything you explained earlier. That's exactly all the changes I had to make in my life to be now in a more structured program.
Perfect. So that's exactly what it is. So find that structure and go in, and everything has to be methodical, right? Like we know these exams, like it's an hour for that essay. So you have to come in, right? And you have to be about business very quickly. But anytime then that you're spending thinking too much, or how am I going to organize this, or what's going on, or what about this, right? We don't have time for that. It's very boom, 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 boom. Right. So awesome.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Do we see of course, you're welcome. Do we have any other questions? Oh, and also, by the way, Monique put in the RSVP link for the bar breakdown in the chat. If anybody wants to come to the event tomorrow, it's going to be at same time, 6 p.m., and we're going to be going over the contracts essay. All right. Any other questions? And so I see we basically split up our session into 2 sessions. I see our other students have come in. What I'm going to do is just take a quick little 2-minute break if there's no questions from those that came in at 6 o'clock. Any other questions from those that came in at 6 o'clock? No. Keith, we started that session with you. Let's go ahead and end it with you. Where are you at right now? What did you think? Any thoughts? Any lingering questions? Where are you at now? 45 minutes later. Oh, you're muted again.
I think I definitely need to get like a private tutoring for sure. It's just that based on like what you stated earlier, that the score ranges is I probably need a little, and because I did self-study. The first time I took one course, and it just did not work. And then I did self-study and I saw that my score improved dramatically, but I still have a lot to work on. But I know that, especially if I have someone who experience in this area, in each area of law that I need to focus on, I think I'll be fine. But I think I definitely need private, the tutoring. So I'm definitely looking into that.
Yeah, and I think again, like that is the strategic, the way to approach repeat taking, right? Because even then, if you want to rely more so on self-study plus private coaching, like that's a decent route. Some will do heavy program and private coaching. So you have all those combinations, but good. I'm glad that you got that clarity that, oh, okay, I think this is the route for me to lean into. So perfect. All right, so we're gonna have to go ahead and take
Before you go, DeAndre, I'm sorry. Perlita did have a question in the chat. She was asking about the schedule.
Perlita says, does the schedule look the same for the different course options that you offer? So Perlita, no, the schedule remains the same. All right. And so the way the idea works is if we have a workshop on Tuesday, well, the workshop on Tuesday for the Bar Prep Plus, they'll have that live at 10 a.m. in this environment on Zoom, whereas the other students will be watching a recording. So it follows the entire same schedule, but everything that we have for live options, the live students will do live, and there'll be, again, some additional things and extras that they get as well. But yes, same schedule. Awesome.